Hello, and welcome to the Gamer's Closet. I'm your host, Douglas Weed, and today we're going to be talking about Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is a game manufactured by Milton Bradley in 1985 and Ravensburger Games in 1983, depending on which edition you have. It was released in Europe first and then America. This game is a point-to-point movement game with a hidden piece variant to it. The game itself runs for about 45 minutes, seats 2 to 6 players, and is rated for ages 10 and up. But let's dig into it a little further, shall we?
There goes Mr. X!
I'll follow my tack. I'll go by boat.
They're hot on the trail of the sinister Mr. X. It's Scotland Yard, the new game of teamwork, strategy, intrigue.
He went underground.
He's got to surf somewhere.
Right.
Working together as Scotland Yard, you scour the city until you trap him.
Oh, no!
I did it.
Mr. X did it.
Let's try again.
Scotland Yard, the award-winning game from Europe, now from Milton Bradley.
Scotland Yard is a detective game released by Ravensburger Games in 1983 in Europe and was later transported to America in 1985 through Milton Bradley. In this game, one player plays as Mr. X, a wanted criminal who is on the run in central London. The rest of the players play as the Scotland Yard police force who are trailing Mr. X and hopefully trying to capture him. The game has been released in multiple countries in multiple languages, including English, French, and German. The game has been reprinted several times, again in 1991 and again in 2004, and is still currently in print today through Ravensburger. This game does consist of multiple pieces. It includes one game board map of central London, 6 player pawns, 125 fare tokens, which include 54 taxi, 43 bus, 23 underground, and 5 black tokens, 5 detective shield cards in blue, green, orange, purple, and yellow, 2 double movement cards, 18 start cards, 1 set of game rules, 1 logbook and pad, and 1 storage tray to store all of your components in. To set up this game, select a player to play Mr. X. The player is given the uncolored pawn and a logbook. The logbook is where Mr. X secretly records their movements and gives ticket fare clues to his whereabouts. To assemble the logbook, position the 24-hold cover over the pad. A pencil will be needed to record the route. All other players are the detectives and control the movements of the 5 colored pawns. Depending on how many players are in the game, a detective could control as few as 1 or as many as 3 pawns. When choosing pawns, the pawns are distributed as follows. In a 6-player game, each player has 1 pawn. In a 5-player game, 1 player playing the detectives will play as a purple and a yellow detective. In a 4-player game, 1 person will play as the purple and yellow, and another person will play as the red and green. And in a 3-player game, 1 person will play as the purple, yellow, and blue detective, while the other one plays as the red and green. Only 1 person will play as Mr. X at any time. When passing out fare tickets, give to each player for every pawn they're controlling 10 taxi tickets, 8 bus tickets, and 4 underground tickets. A detective's ticket supply is limited. Once a ride is taken and a fare is paid, the ticket is spent. There is no way for a detective to replenish these used tickets. Please note, as a detective, you receive a limited supply for each pawn you are controlling. If you are moving more than 1 pawn, you must keep the allotted tickets for each pawn separate. Use the colored Royal Detective Bureau tokens as markers to properly color code each pawn's ticket supply. Just place the appropriate markers near the piles to remind you of which ticket supplies belong to which color pawn. Mr. X gets the remaining fare tickets, the 4 taxi, 3 bus, and 3 underground. This is Mr. X's starting supply only. During the game, Mr. X's supply increases, for as the detectives spend tickets, they hand them over to Mr. X. Mr. X then has an unlimited ticket supply. As a result, he is always free to use whatever form of transportation he wishes. He also gets the 5 special black fare tickets and the 2 double move tickets. Finally, take the 18 start cards and place them face down in the playing area and mix them up. Every player draws one card for each pawn they are controlling. The remaining cards are put aside face down. The numbers determine starting positions for all pawns. Once the game board is opened up, the detectives place their pawns on the directed number locations on the board. Mr. X, however, does not. Mr. X's location must be kept secret from the detectives so that the uncolored pawn does not get positioned on the board. Please note for Mr. X to be sneaky when examining the starting location on the board, be careful where your eyes roam on the board. For example, if you're starting in position 198 and you stare at the lower right quadrant of the board, I'm pretty sure that the detectives will figure out where you are. So try to give an overview without actually giving yourself away. To move, all players move from one numbered location to another by either the yellow taxi route, the green bus routes, or the red underground routes. Each trip must be paid with the appropriate ticket. Please note that the transportation routes are all color-coded to their proper tickets. The numbered locations are stations or stops for one or more routes. Each location is color-coded to tell you what transportation service you can move to such a spot or to move from such a spot. For example, we'll take a look at position 185 here, near Buckingham Palace on the game board, for example, of a stop with 3 transportation services. On the top, the green signals that you can move here by bus. The highlighted number signals that you can move here by underground, and on the bottom it shows that you can move here by yellow taxi. Please note that all numbered locations are yellow signals, so you can always move to and from such spots by taxi if you have the matching yellow ticket. 2 stop locations, yellow and green signals, allows you to move to and from by taxi or bus, and 3 stop signals as positioned above are the rarest and will allow you to move to and from here by taxi, bus, or underground location. Whether you're playing Mr. X or the detectives, there are 3 simple rules that you must follow. First, you can only move on colored routes and to the next numbered location on the route that matches the ticket you paid. The routes are solid yellow lines for taxis, green solid lines for buses, and broken red lines for the underground. The second rule is no player can refuse to move or remain in the same location. On your turn, you must move your pawn or pawns that you are controlling. And third, you can never move to an already occupied numbered location. There never can be 2 or more pawns on the same spot, and of course, if Mr. X moved onto an occupied location or a detective moved onto a location occupied by Mr. X, the game would be over. There are no other restrictions to movement. You can double back on your turn to a location you just occupied, or you can pass over each other's pawns on the same route to a different location. This applies only to bus routes and underground routes, not on taxi routes. The turn of play moves as follows. For the detectives, play always moves in a clockwise fashion on the board while Mr. X goes first. As a detective, if you are controlling more than one pawn, move all of your pawns at the same time before play passes to the left. The detective's turn moves as follows. Pay your fare ticket to Mr. X and then move your pawn. Repeat the sequence for each pawn you're controlling. Table talk is encouraged between the detectives. Talk over the best moves for each before you move your pawns and are transported. Cooperation will help tighten the dragnet to find Mr. X. As a detective, your ticket supply diminishes as you play, and it is possible that you could become stranded at a location without any tickets at all or without the particular fare you need to move from or to another location. If this happens, your pawn is out of the game, but remains on the game board on its stranded location. For Mr. X, all detectives' moves are made openly on the board. Mr. X moves are made secretly, not on the game board, but in the logbook. To move Mr. X, secretly write the location where you want to move in the window on the logbook. Then cover the window of this entry that was just made with the ticket that is needed to make such a move. It is important that the logbook tickets are clues to the detectives as to what form of transportation Mr. X used for his getaway. When Mr. X starts, his starting location is not entered into the logbook. Rather, Mr. X's first move from the starting location to another location is the first entry of the logbook and is recorded in the window marked number 1. All subsequent moves are recorded in order, 1 move per window. Mr. X's logbook with the ticket clues must always be visible to detectives, and the detective's ticket supply should always be visible to Mr. X. So Mr. X can determine what forms of transportation the detectives are limited to. Mr. X will be required to surface at several points during the game, as he is forced to reveal himself and his location on the board with the uncolored pawn at regular intervals, as many as 5 times during the game. The first time you surface and show yourself is after your third move, and then after moves 8, 13, 18, and 24. This would be the last move of the game. The oval windows on the logbook remind you of these must-surface locations. When surfacing, do the following. Secretly write the location number you move to in the oval window of the logbook, just as you would make a regular entry. Cover the window with the appropriate ticket you used for such a move. Place your uncolored pawn on the board on top of the location number you just entered in the logbook. The pawn remains there until you move again. On your next turn, you're invisible again and move secretly, so your pawn is removed from the board. Mr. X does have a few other options available to him to help outwit the detectives that are chasing him. First off are black tickets. Black tickets are great camouflage tools. As Mr. X, you can only have 5 of them, so make good use of them. There are a couple of ways you can use them. First, you can use them in place of any other regular fare ticket to camouflage the form of transportation you use to make a move. For example, instead of covering the window of your logbook with a taxi, bus, or underground ticket, just cover the window with a black ticket, and the detectives will have no idea what mode of transportation you took. Black tickets can also be used to cover one or more of the logbook entries on a double move, which I will cover in a moment. The second option using black tickets is traveling by boat. Mr. X is the only player that can travel up and down the Thames by boat. To do this, Mr. X must move from and to specific riverfront locations and must use a black ticket to take the voyage. As Mr. X, use one black ticket to travel downriver along the solid black line on the river, or vice versa upriver. The other ability that Mr. X has is the double move option. As Mr. X, you can move to 2 different numbered locations all in the same move by using a special ×2 double move card. Your double moves are limited. You only have 2 of them, so use them wisely. The double move is a quick escape feature that allows you to move to one transportation spot and then to another. Both locations are secretly entered into your logbook in separate windows, and each entry is covered by its appropriate ticket. You can combine taxi, bus, or underground rides on a double move if you wish. If forced to surface on a double move, be sure to reveal yourself on the proper move, either the first part of your move or the second part of your move, whichever one is entered into the oval window. Double moves are great cover your track features, so if you can avoid using them when you have to surface, the more elusive you'll become. After you make a double move, put the ×2 card out of play. The game can end in a couple of different ways. First, if none of the detectives can move because they've run out of fare tickets, then Mr. X wins the game and the detectives lose the game. This can only happen after every detective makes their 22nd move and Mr. X has still not been caught. Another way of winning is if any of the detectives move onto a numbered location that Mr. X occupies. Mr. X is captured and the game is over. Mr. X reveals his last location by showing everyone the last entered location in the logbook. Mr. X has lost the game and the Scotland Yard detective team is the winner. The final way of winning is if none of the detectives can move because they run out of a particular kind of ticket. Then Mr. X wins the game and the detectives lose. This is a remote situation, but it is possible that all the detectives could be left with only bus or underground tickets and be stranded on locations that don't use such tickets. Please note that it is important that after the game is over, if there are any questions about Mr. X's movements, the logbook entries can be checked location by location. If you do wish to make the game a little bit harder, there is a variation you can use for experienced players. In addition to the 5 times that Mr. X must reveal himself, Mr. X can voluntarily surface at other times in the game. In return for revealing his location, Mr. X takes 1 ticket of his choice from each of the detectives' ticket piles. This is a clever way to wear away at their ticket supplies and restrict their movements. Well, this has been an overview of Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is a very well-built game. It was released in Europe in 1983 and it was released in America in 1985. The game itself doesn't change much between the editions. It's really well built. It's really nice. There's a lot of nice graphics on the board for the city map with actual landmarks. So as the board goes, it looks really nice. The game itself plays at a very fast pace. It's really easy for kids. It's a kind of a basic strategy game, as I would put it. The nice co-op workings with all the Scotland Yard agents is a very nice feature, with Mr. X in the background hiding where he has to make random appearances. It's a very well-built game. The game itself, very self-explanatory, very easy to learn. Kids shouldn't have too much of a problem picking it up. The game itself goes online anywhere from about $10 to about $40, depending on the edition you can find. Because the game still is in print today, it is relatively easy to find on Ravensburger's website and several other online game companies. Like I said, the game itself, very easy to pick up, very easy to play. I do have fond memories of playing this game as a child, so this game does hold a special place in my heart. So if you haven't played Scotland Yard before, I would recommend picking it up, as it is a quality, well-built game, and I do recommend playing this game. Well, that's it from us here at the Gamers Closet. We'd like to thank you for checking out our video on Scotland Yard from Milton Bradley Games. If there's a game in the future you'd like us to review and go over, please put it in the comments below. Please hit subscribe so that way you can be the first to check out our future content. And as always, please, have a great gaming day.